Chapter 1. Armor On. The first day of school outfit. For some kids, it's just clothes. For me, it felt like armor. Heavy, necessary, and sometimes too tight. My closet door stood wide open, revealing the battlefield of choices I'd lined up in neat rows. On one side, the pastel dresses Mom adored, soft fabrics that smelled faintly of lavender, like her perfume, and fluttered gently on the hangers. On the other, my usual arsenal, black ripped jeans that had been worn thin at the knees, band tees that smelled faintly of sweat and summer, and my beloved leather jacket, worn soft and cracked with years of wear. I let my fingers drift over the silky blouse Mom had placed carefully on my desk chair last night, its delicate fabric whispering promises I didn't want to keep. Wearing it felt like playing a role, one that erased the battle scars I carried beneath my skin. My sanctuary, my room, was quiet but alive with memory. Sunlight spilled through the curtains in warm gold stripes, settling on the photos pinned above my desk. Sophia's wild grin, the blurred city lights from last summer, Ethan's laugh caught mid-joy. My Canon sat ready on the shelf, a trusted companion, the cold metal a reminder that through the lens, I could control how the world saw me. The air smelled faintly of sandalwood incense, a scent I'd lit the night before to calm my restless mind. I wrapped my hands around a mug of lukewarm chamomile tea, my fingers tracing the chipped rim as I tried to steady my breathing. Downstairs, the morning symphony began. Dad's spatula scraped the frying pan, sending sizzling bursts of bacon grease into the air. The scent was salty and warm, wrapping around me like a soft blanket. Sophia's book bag thudded on the floor, followed by a loud, exaggerated groan about its weight. Dad's calm rumble in response mingled with the rich, bitter aroma of Mom's coffee, slowly drifting up the stairs. "Harper!" Sophia's voice echoed from the kitchen, sharp and insistent. "Can you come help me with my hair? It looks like a bird's nest again." I smiled softly, a small amount of normalcy I clung to like a lifeline. I pulled my eyes from the closet and caught my reflection in the full-length mirror on the back of my door. The girl staring back was still unfamiliar in some ways, long dark hair falling past my shoulders, the subtle curve of my hips, eyes that finally felt like they belonged to the rest of my face. Hormones had done their work, but the scars beneath the surface were invisible to most. I pulled out my favorite pair of jeans, perfectly worn, with a strategic rip in the left knee that Mom hated, and paired them not with a band tee, but with a soft, deep teal sweater. It was a compromise, maybe, approachable but not invisible, strong but not a declaration of war. For my feet, there was no question. My battered black combat boots. They were my foundation. They'd walked me through every hard day since I'd bought them with my own money. I tied my hair back into a loose ponytail, the soft tug a reminder that sometimes control was an illusion. I was ready. Armor on. The wooden stairs creaked beneath my boots as I descended, each step a steady drumbeat announcing my arrival. The kitchen was a warm pocket of light and noise. Dad stood at the stove, spatula in hand, his broad shoulders silhouetted by the early morning sun streaming through the window. He was a mountain, solid, calm, steady. The smell of bacon was tinged with a slight burnt edge, a sign his mind was elsewhere, probably already running through cases at the law firm. "Morning," I said, grabbing the orange juice from the fridge. Mom looked up from her laptop, the glow illuminating her tired eyes. She sat at the kitchen table, her office for the morning, papers stacked around her. Her brow was furrowed in the way that meant she hadn't slept well. "Harper, mija," she said, voice soft but tinged with worry. "That's what you're wearing?" It wasn't really a question, more like a gentle protest. Her eyes flickered to the empty chair where the silk blouse had been laid out last night. "Morning, Mom." "Yes," I said, pouring myself a glass of juice. Dad turned, rumbled a sleepy, "Morning, sleepyhead," and gave me a one-arm tug. He slid a plate toward me, 2 perfectly cooked pieces of bacon and 1 slightly charred slice, his silent apology for the burnt smell. Your mother is already reading about the new school board policies, Dad said quietly. Someone has to, Mom replied without looking up. They're trying to codify bigotry, Raph, right here in our town. I felt the sharp edge in her voice, a mix of anger and exhaustion. The words swirled around me, settling like stones in my stomach. Sophia stomped in, hair a wild tangle, cheeks flushed with morning energy. Can you guys not talk about politics for 5 seconds? It's the first day of school. She grabbed a banana from the counter and plopped down at the table. Harper, please, can you do my hair? I swear it looks like a bird's nest. I laughed, the sound easy and real, and put down my glass. Sure, little bird. Mom smiled, a brief flicker of peace. Thank you, Harper. You're the best. As I braided Sophia's wild hair, the scent of her shampoo filled the air, a bright mix of citrus and mint. These moments, chaotic and messy, were the before. The before we stepped out the door into a world that wasn't always kind. With Sophia's hair finally tamed into a respectable braid, I slung my backpack over one shoulder and headed toward the door. Bye, love you, I called out. Have a good day. Dad's voice echoed warmly. Be careful, Harper, Mom added, her voice tight with worry she tried to hide but never could. Outside, the late August air was thick and warm, clinging to my skin like a second layer. The neighborhood was waking up around me. Lawn sprinklers whispered, birds called to each other from the oak trees lining cracked sidewalks, and somewhere a lawnmower droned steadily. I walked toward the corner, my stomach doing nervous little flips, and then I saw him. Ethan was leaning against the oak tree that marked our meeting spot, scrolling on his phone with a furrowed brow. When he looked up, his face broke into the kind of smile that could make you forget all the ugliness in the world. Hey, you, he said, pushing off the tree and stepping forward. He leaned in and gave me a soft kiss, his lips tasting like the mint toothpaste he always used. I was starting to think you decided to skip the whole senior year thing. Tempting, I joked, falling into step beside him. My hand found his automatically, our fingers lacing together. But I heard the cafeteria has tater tots today. Besides, I wouldn't want to miss our last first day. True, he squeezed my hand. You look amazing, by the way. It's my armor, I said, a small smile playing on my lips. Well, it's working. He was quiet for a moment as we walked, the sounds of the neighborhood waking up around us. Birds flitting, distant children playing, the soft crunch of gravel beneath our boots. Then he sighed, thumb rubbing gentle circles on the back of my hand. So, are you ready for this? The question hung between us like heat in the air. He wasn't just talking about classes or seeing friends. He was talking about everything else. The new rules, the new president, the new reality. I guess we're about to find out, I said, feeling my armor grow heavier. The high school loomed ahead, all cracked brick and 2 bright banners that read, Welcome back, seniors, in blocky letters someone had tried to jazz up with glitter. It looked like a lie, the kind of thing you slap on a wound and call it healed. Kids milled around the entrance like it was still summer, hugging, laughing, trading horror stories about summer jobs or flings. My stomach tightened. Ethan's hand in mine helped, but it didn't fix everything. I could feel eyes glancing our way. Some curious, some judgmental, some blank. I had gotten used to it, mostly. But not today. Not on the first day. I hate this part, I murmured. Ethan squeezed my hand. You've got this. He gave me a quick kiss on the cheek before we separated for our lockers. I exhaled slowly and walked up the steps, passing under the banner like it might fall on me at any moment. The halls smelled like new pencils and floor wax. My combat boots echoed a little too loudly. Then it happened. Morning, Mateo, someone said. A teacher, I didn't even know which one, smiled absently as they passed, not even looking up from their clipboard. I froze. Just for a second. Then I kept walking, pretending I hadn't heard. But the words clung like burrs. Not even malicious. just lazy. Just wrong. Homeroom was worse. Mrs. Copeland had always been stiff, but this year she looked like she'd come back from summer vacation with a spine made of stone. Her graying hair was twisted into a severe knot, and her glasses perched low on her nose like they didn't trust the world. She read from the attendance sheet like it was gospel. Anderson Julia, Brewer Tyler, Campbell Jason. I braced myself. Martinez Mateo. Silence. My hand went up, slow and deliberate. It's Harper. Mrs. Copeland looked up, pinched her lips, and didn't write a thing. I'm required to call students by their legal name, she said. It's the new district policy. A few students turned to look, some out of confusion, a few smirking. A boy near the back whispered something to his friend and snorted. I nodded once. Still, it's Harper. She moved on without acknowledging me again. The rest of roll call blurred into white noise. I stared at the dent in my desk and counted the beats of my heart. The armor I'd put on that morning, it cracked. Just a little. By lunch, I still hadn't gone to the bathroom. I didn't even feel like I needed to anymore. Just the thought of navigating it made my stomach ache. I'd scoped out the safe ones during junior year. The gender-neutral staff bathroom near the library, the one locked half the time, and the old nurse's office converted into a single stall. Both usually had lines. At our lunch table, Ethan sat beside me while our friend Grace recapped her family's disastrous trip to Mexico. I laughed at the right times, picked at a turkey sandwich, and nodded when someone mentioned our old English teacher had moved away. Normal stuff. I wanted it to be enough. Hey, you okay? Ethan murmured. I looked up, startled. I hadn't realized how quiet I'd gone. Yeah, I said automatically. Just tired. He didn't press. That's one of the reasons I loved him. After lunch, I ducked into the photo lab. It was tucked away near the art wing, cool, dim, and smelling faintly of chemicals and dust. The walls were lined with student work from last year. Moody landscapes, portraits of classmates, a series of decaying flowers I'd admired before. Harper, Mr. Kim, the photography teacher, smiled from his desk. He was maybe 30, wore flannel like a second skin, and had a camera permanently slung around his neck. Glad to see you signed up again. Couldn't stay away, I said, managing a smile. I wandered to the supply shelf and ran my fingers over the familiar weight of a school camera. I didn't check one out. I had my own, but just touching it helped. I breathed easier here. You okay? Mr. Kim asked, quieter now. I hesitated, then nodded. First day stuff. Well, you know this room's always open. You've got an eye. Don't let anyone shut it. That stuck with me. The final bell rang outside. The heat hadn't let up, and the pavement shimmered as I stepped onto the sidewalk. I found Ethan waiting at our usual spot under the oak. How bad? He asked. I shrugged. Roll call. His jaw tightened. You want me to say something? No, I don't want it to be a thing. I just want to exist. We walked in silence a bit, the kind that wasn't heavy, just thoughtful. My camera bounced against my side in its case. I pulled it out, framed a shot of the school behind us, the flagpole casting a long shadow across the lawn, the welcome back banner barely hanging on by one corner. Click. First shot of senior year. Maybe, I thought, it would be the first in a new series. Something real. Something mine. I lowered the camera and looked at Ethan. Thanks for being here. Always. And for the first time that day, the armor didn't feel quite so heavy. The late afternoon sun hung low, a warm amber haze spilling over the neighborhood. The sidewalks were cracked and uneven beneath our boots, dappled with shadows from the towering oaks lining the street. The scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the faint hum of sprinklers watering thirsty lawns. Somewhere nearby, a lawnmower droned in steady rhythm. Ethan's hand brushed against mine as we walked side by side, his presence a quiet anchor. He didn't say anything right away, letting the comfortable silence stretch between us. Finally, he broke it gently. So, tell me about the roll call? I glanced at him. The corners of his mouth tilted with sympathy, those eyes that always seemed to see the real me. I swallowed hard, words catching in my throat. The roll call. Mrs. Copeland read Mateo Martinez, like it was the only truth in the room, like everything I am is just a mistake. My voice cracked, barely louder than the whisper of leaves stirred by a soft breeze. Ethan's fingers tightened around mine. That's not true. You are Harper. You always have been. But it hurts, I said, voice trembling. Every time someone calls me by the wrong name or uses the wrong pronouns, it's like this little cut that never really heals. Like I have to remind the world who I am, over and over. And sometimes I'm just so tired. He stopped walking and looked at me fully, his expression fierce with empathy. You don't have to carry this alone. I wanted to believe him. I tried to believe him. We continued, the crunch of gravel underfoot mixing with the distant chatter of kids playing tag in a neighbor's yard. The sky shifted, the golden light softening to dusk. Fireflies blinked awake in the tall grass. When we reached my porch, Ethan paused. Walk you in? I nodded, suddenly aware how much I needed that normalcy. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and coffee. Mom's favorite mug sat full on the kitchen table, beside her open laptop glowing dimly in the fading light. She looked up from the screen as we entered, eyes tired but fierce. Harper, she breathed, closing the computer and setting it aside. How was your day? I shrugged off my backpack and let it drop to the floor. It was hard. She crossed the room in a few strides, pulling me into a hug so tight I felt the weight in my chest press outward. They don't see you, I whispered against her shoulder. Like I'm invisible. Mom's hand rubbed, soothing circles on my back. We'll make them see. We'll fight this every single day. I wanted to hold on to her strength, to let it fill the cracks in my armor, but the exhaustion swelled like a tide beneath my ribs. Later, after Ethan left and the house grew quiet, I slipped into my room and closed the door behind me. The soft glow of my corkboard illuminated the little universe I'd created. Photos of Sophia's toothy grin, candid shots of Ethan laughing, a black and white of the old oak outside the school. I sank down against the wall, knees drawn up, the familiar weight of my camera case at my side. My breaths came shallow and ragged. I tried to blink back the tears, but they spilled quietly down my cheeks anyway. I didn't know how I'd make it through senior year, how I'd keep fighting when everything around me seemed designed to erase me. But I had to try, because this was my life, my name, my armor.